Yes, guys, how are we doing? So it's Ben Hawks about the Coach Consultant, and today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough on how you create consistent revenue growth through working within a niche. So I've used a little bit of an infographic here which tries to explain all the points that I'm going to be making, and I'll annotate all around the outside. So basically what we're looking at is this kind of red line that you can see in the middle, or yellow line that I've just put through. On the top, you've basically got how you create clarity and conversion, and then how you create confusion and conflict, right? In order for us to be in a position to make money, right? So let's just say that we've got a money man here, and then we have basically got no money, right? That is basically all going to come back down to the clarity that we can actually create through what we are actually doing in terms of our outbound efforts and everything that we're putting out. So just as a bit of a demonstration, right, I'm going to talk through what you shouldn't be doing as a first starting point. So as a first starting point, what we've basically got is how you create a substantial amount of confusion and conflict. So you're going to create a substantial amount of confusion and conflict if you are in this position where you do not have any type of content strategy aiming at someone, right? If you have not got acquisition strategies aimed at someone, if you do not have a program aimed at someone. So in essence, regardless of how you look at this, we are always going to be in a position where you need to be aiming at something. So an area that people go wrong, so let's just say, for example, you're at this point now where you've got a niche, right? And people come in and they try it, right? And they get to a point where they're like, right, I'm going to try it. And what we've got to take into account is there's basically latency, right? So there's latency, and there's also time, and there's also a narrative, right? So we need to get into a position where over time, the narrative and the latency of people digesting our content is getting to a point that they actually understand that we know what we're talking about. So when we're basically looking at isolating a niche and a content strategy and acquisition and program efforts around that niche, we need to make sure that we're giving it months, right? We are in a position where we are giving it absolutely everything for months on end, because if we're not giving it for months on end, then it's basically going to get to a point where as audiences just thinking, right, we're just chopping from this, or she's chopping from that, or like, I don't really know where she stands, right? If we're basically looking to get to this top point, which is clarity, right? The first foundational structure that, if I look at an overview here, is going to be consistency, right? It's the biggest thing that you will always say to your clients. If you are consistent, you will get results. It is exactly the same in business, right? If you are really, really heavily consistent with every single thing that you are doing with your content, which is targeting a niche, with your acquisition efforts and within your program, then what we're basically looking at is over a sustained period of time, you are going to earn a substantial amount more money in terms of revenue that you bring into your business, right? Whereas if you're like this, where you're like, right, well, I'm going to position myself here. No, now I'm going to chop to there. Now I'm going to chop to there. Now I'm going to chop to there. It's going to get to a point where your audience doesn't really know what's going on. And I've used this demonstration before, but what we're basically looking at when we're getting into a niche is we're fishing, yeah? And this is basically where the money is down here. So I'm going to do it in an S, easy to draw. So we've got an S down there, which is like where we're fishing, right? But when you're chopping around and jumping from loads of different things, right, what you're doing is you're basically fishing up here, right? And you've got all these scrabs, and it's basically where people just aren't giving it enough time. Whereas we need to be coming thinking, right, I want to be fishing down into those depths. I'm going to do this right over a sustained period of time to emit the biggest response, right? So what we've got to take into account, right, is content, right? When you've basically got a content strategy, right, which is aimed at a niche, it is going to allow you to have a clear target in terms of what you're actually aiming at. So I think that everybody would agree on that as a first starting point, right? But what we've also got to take into account from there is the fact that when we're looking at acquisition, right, acquisition doesn't happen overnight, right? You are going to have to look at lead magnets, right? You are going to have to look at outbound. You are going to have to look at connections, right? You are going to have to potentially look at paid media, right? There's all these things here. What is always going to come back down to the actual amount of time that you spend doing it, right? So what you can't do is think, right, well, I'm going to aim my content at this type of person for the next few weeks and see if I get a response. Stop thinking like that, right? Start thinking about, I am 100% confident that I have made the right decision to work with the right person. I know that I can be really, really consistent with the actual value I can provide to that person. I can be really really consistent with the efforts that I put into acquisition because I really want to work with them. And most importantly, I can actually seriously go out my way to build an absolute top level fucking program for that, right? So when we're basically in this position now where we are basically enabling every single avenue to be targeted, right? The only thing that you need to do from that point is give it time. That is it. So when you've got an online client, so let's use an example. Let's just say that we have got an online client here. So we've got online. If that person sticks to their diet, if that person sticks to training, if that person has good sleep, if that person does steps, if that person trains hard, if that person potentially has education on mindset and improves all their kind of goal setting and everything else on that side, what is the chances and likelihood of them or you, for example, getting them result? It's going to be tenfold because they are literally just being compliant. So when we're looking at your business right now, right, I want you to look at it the same as that you would teach to an online client. When you are doing this process and when you get into it, every single avenue that you look from always needs to come back to, how do I create as much consistency with clarity to get to a point of conversion? I will create more clarity if it's really, really clear who I am working with and who I am as a person, right? From that point, when I am really targeted with my content, it means that I can actually really start to refine that process and get better, right? Once I'm at a position where I'm getting better, it means that I can get a lot more specific with my acquisition efforts. Now I'm ticking the boxes in terms of acquisition, right? Sweet. Now I need to think about how I actually can increase my sales and increase the solutions that I can provide through my actual program, right? If you are consistent with all of these areas, I can categorically promise you that you will easily scale your business just from the fact of doing it right? Compliance, right? That is the bottom line of what this comes back down to, right? You need to have compliance, the exact same as you would ask an online client to come through, right? If you have compliance in a position of actually giving something enough time, right? And then coming down to a point of having specificity, so we've got targeting, then that is a recipe for achieving infinite and unlimited success within a niche, right? But if we go back to that same point of going, right, well, I don't want to have a niche, right? Well, then imagine that target, your arrows are going to be coming there. We're going to completely miss the point. Whereas if you have got the type of process that I'm talking about here, where it is niche, and then we're going to come in and we've got program, and then you have got your content, and then you have finally got in the middle acquisition and sales in place. All that takes is more time to get closer, to get closer, to get closer, to get closer. And eventually, when you start hitting that sweet spot and you're absolutely smashing the life out of that bullseye, the only thing that you need from that point is to basically do another strand off this, where you come down and then you basically divide that, sorry, not divide it, you times that by volume. Once you do this right and you get to that sweet spot where you are emitting a response and interactions and everything that you're doing is giving you rewards, all you need to literally do is think, right, how do I actually get to a point of 10x in the volume here? So that is going to be through more lead magnets, through better content, through more creativity, through daily emails, through paid media, through boosting posts, through events, through community activities, right? But the main thing and the bottom line that you need to think about is when I am going to do this and when I get into business, I need to be consistent and I need to make sure that I am compliant. Because if I'm in a position where, for example, one of these areas is off, then I am not going to be consistent, right? And if I zoom right in on there, it is not going to be clear what I am actually doing. If it is not clear what I am doing and what my intentions are, I will not have conversions because my audience does not have a fucking Scooby-Doo what I'm actually trying to sell to them, what my vision is, what my mission is, what my offer is, who my niche is, and how I'm exactly going to help them, right? The biggest asset that you have, so regardless of every single avenue that we're looking at there, every single thing that you ever do within business will come back down to compliance and consistency, right? By doing it right. Right, so when I look at business, this is basically how I've scaled to multi-seven figures now. That is literally it, right? I have just literally done it right as a starting point, and then being consistent, and then being compliant. But where we go wrong with entrepreneurship is the fact that when we're in this type of zone and things are looking down, we just basically think, right, I'm going to give up at this point. You can't look at business like that. You have to keep fucking going. right? If things, for example, aren't going your way and it's not going right, like we've put there, we know that there's something breaking down in the area of not actually doing this right by talking about the things that I'm talking about there. So if you're not doing this right, it doesn't matter how consistent that you are. It doesn't matter how compliant you are. And it certainly doesn't matter how much actually volume you're looking to create into the business, right? Because it will bottom line come back to them making sure that the groundwork that you've actually put in with the consistency and targeting within this element here will completely define the speed it will take you to get to a point of being able to push more volume, right? So when you're looking at your business right now, all I want you to remember is clarity is the key to conversion. If you can create clarity and simplicity, where when you are presenting, imagine that an 8-year-old could understand how clear and simple to easy and understand to process exactly what you are doing. So the concept of keep it simple, stupid is so important when it comes to business. People need to know exactly, number one, who you are. Number two, what you do. Number three, what you're going to help. That is it. If someone knows who you are as a person, they will trust you, they will connect with you, they'll interact with you more. If they know what you do, they will be more likely to actually interact and want to actually find out more information. If you can then clearly articulate and present to them exactly how you are going to help them, then that is basically what's going to guarantee you success. And then from that point, if you are compliant, you give it enough time, you increase your level targeting and specificity, and then finally just come through and absolutely times the life out of this in terms of volume like we've got there. But if you times that life and hammer that with as much volume as possible, then you're going to earn 10 times as much money. But bottom line, regardless of whatever you look at this like, do not be in this zone there. Right? I shouldn't really do that in green, right? Never ever get yourself into a position where you do not have targeted content, you do not have targeted acquisition, and you do not have a targeted program, because that is going to lead to no rewards, right? If you focus on what I've put down on here, clarity, conversion, targeted content, target acquisition, targeted sales, targeted solutions, and then you are in a position where you are given enough time because you are being consistent and compliant, and then you are increasing that level of specificity to make sure we've got targeting, all you then need to do is go times volume. That is literally the foundational success on any single business that there is out there. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, guys. The main things that I wanted you to really kind of process and understand is the importance of basically being in a position where you are being compliant, you're giving it enough time, you're targeting, and most importantly, just don't fucking give up. Like, I can promise you, I don't care who you are, what you are, where you've been, what you've been through, you can achieve whatever you want in life if you stick to the core foundations of what I'm speaking about in this video. So I hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you've got any suggestions, please let me know. I'd love some ideas based on what people are actually wanting, based on what I put down. And if not, I'll see you on the next video. And if you do want any support with doing it right and all the type of stuff that I'm speaking about on these slides and all the other videos I'm doing, there's a link somewhere around in my bio to have a look at what we do, the results that we get, and have a chat with my team as well if you want. So see you on the next video.